UN chief spokesperson delivers a massive L to Western neocons by reaffirming the position that Taiwan is a province of China.
On the issue of China, we are guided by the General Assembly resolution of 1971.
You said the resolution of 1971, and what does that mean in this context?
Well, it means in terms of our standing on Taiwan as a province of China.
This comes as there is heightening tensions within the Taiwan Strait, where you have the United States and Japan. They even stated that they would defend Taiwan against China. This is a massive blow to Western neocons, as their primary talking point that they used to justify escalation against China was claiming that China was invoking an undeserved claim over Taiwan. If you watch the corporate media, you wouldn't even know that the United States officially acknowledges Taiwan as a part of China. It was the cornerstone of restoring relations between the United States and China. So if we acknowledge that Taiwan is part of China, why are we risking World War III in order to get militarily involved in a domestic affair of China? It's because Western neocons knew this was always the way to provoke China into war, by meddling with Taiwan. If anyone believes that China is out of line, can you imagine how the United States will react if we had China, Russia, funding Texas secession movements in the farthest right extremes in our country? That is exactly what we're doing with China and Taiwan. The United States has been provoking China every step of the way. Meanwhile, the corporate media somehow able to convince Americans that China is somehow the bad guy. What's poppin'? The new president of Taiwan was inaugurated on Friday, and he gave one of the most unhinged speeches that any president of Taiwan have given. That is essentially designed to provoke China. And I did this hotspot video that I released yesterday, where I outlined how the UN is essentially rebuking neocons in the United States and in the UK. If you was to watch Fox News, hell, if you was even to watch CNN, MSNBC, and liberal media, they would do entire segments about Taiwan and China without ever mentioning the one China policy, without ever mentioning the fact that Taiwan is a province of China. It'll be entire segments, it'll be entire articles without even mentioning that. In fact, I know because I've been in space for about a few years now, the people who even mention the fact that Taiwan is China, they will call you a puppet of the Chinese Communist Party. That has been the messaging. You will be called a propagandist for the Chinese by saying that Taiwan is part of China. Because acknowledging that Taiwan is just a province, a part of China, no different than Texas in the United States, it outlines how absurd United States, Japan, Australian policy is towards China. Because if you have separatists that are opposing the overall will of not only just the people in Taiwan, but in China, because you have around 70 to 80% of the Taiwanese population who support normalized status quo relationships with China. Now, don't get twisted. I don't want to misrepresent, because Taiwan does have strong national. They got a lot of nationalism there. Because remember, Taiwan comes. Their heritage comes from the people who lost the Chinese Civil War. A lot of these people was collaborators with Japanese imperialism, and that's why it was a core tenet to normalize relations with United States, for the United States to acknowledge Taiwan as part of China. The same thing with Japan, and now we have Imperial Japan that is back at it again, now trying to pretend to have any claim over the sovereignty of Taiwan, that they have any say about what China is doing in Taiwan, because this will have people freaked out, because the president of Taiwan gave this insane speech openly saying that they're two nations, saying that Taiwan is its own nation. Taiwan is not its own nation. And in this unhinged speech, he explains how the future of Taiwan should be tied to Western industry. He's openly selling out the Taiwanese people. We have massive protests in Taiwan right now in his first week as president. You want to know why? Because the economy is struggling. Meanwhile, military production has increased 10%. So he's ramping up the military budget and shifting the economy in a way that will benefit the West, while trying to put Taiwan in a different direction from China, which led to the prosperity of the Taiwanese people in the first place, because of the giant trade influence that China had in Taiwan. So every once in a while, you'll see the corporate media tell the truth about this guy. Every once in a while, you understand that global polls show that the global population supports the one China policy. The idea that Taiwan is a part of China, around 93 to 95% in global polls. You guys know the majority of Taiwan supports the status quo. The reason why he's president, because they have a multi-party system. All the other parties running on normal relations on China. He did give 30 to 40% because there is that radical. I'm not going to pretend that Taiwan is not divided. They have a radical like 30% who support separation from China. But in the elections, you have the Taiwanese separatist party who got obliterated. All the other seats went to the parties that wanted normalization with China. They just got the president elected, because I'm going to show you guys someone who explained this later. When it comes to Taiwanese national politics, it's much easier for the West to manipulate that. And they have these like tryouts, like Taiwanese presidents and politicians. I was doing a lot of research. I was in the lab cooking for you guys. They do these like tryouts where they and there's a reason why Lai, and that's what they call them. I think his full name like Lai Chi Z or something like that. Let me look. Actually, I don't want to mispronounce. Yeah, Lai Cheese T. But people just call him Lai. But that works perfectly because in the English language, people call him President Lies, which fits because I'm going to show you guys people in Chinese media completely and utterly destroying his unhinged speech that was full with lies, that was written by a script by the West. Now, I cannot deny that the United States and their influence, because they meddle and they fund and they prop up color revolutions. They got control of Taiwanese media and their talking points. So they able to dominate national elections, but they got destroyed on local elections. They lost they are in a minority government. But the global population is against it. That's why you will see headlines like this every once in a while. Lai Chi's language on sovereignty has already strayed from the path taken by its more cautious predecessor. And guys, I cannot emphasize enough that like his predecessor was pushing the lines already. But the predecessor, and I looked up like the primary difference between these two. The predecessor was stress Taiwanese sovereignty. They would talk about deterring Chinese aggression. But they never took it as far as calling Taiwan its own nation that should be relying on the West. So as crazy as the old Taiwanese leader was, President Lai is taking it to the next level. And you guys see, that's just one headline where they said China has a point about Taiwan's new leader. I'm going to show you guys just a few things that was said about him. I'm blanking on her name, but one of the most prolific Chinese journalists, reporters, had a fantastic takedown on President Lai that I'm gonna show you guys here soon. Now, this is just show you guys how the BBC in the West loves this guy because he is more unhinged than any president that people in Taiwan have seen. And once again, Taiwan is already facing mass protests right now over. To be honest, it's kind of unrelated domestic policy, but he's unpopular because remember, a majority of Taiwanese people support normalization. I will still be monitoring the reaction, but his incendiary language that he was talking about, and I'm gonna show you guys more examples during the inauguration, was unacceptable. Now I'm gonna show you guys this because just show you guys just in general, this guy is not like delivering for the people. There's his party in general is not delivering for the people. Got a ton of people that are here in the streets. This is the poll I was referring to earlier, where the global population, because the world is watching Taiwan, because the West wants to war with China, and they are using Taiwan as a way to provoke this war and never-ending conflict with China. So the world is watching. The world is watching his speech. This speech where he essentially said we need to rely on the West. We need to deter Chinese aggression. We need to establish ourselves as an independent nation, no matter what the Chinese people around the world is watching this shit horrified. Horrified. Look at this. 90%, 90.2% to be exact, condemn the Taiwan leader's dangerous remarks, which is the only way you can describe it. China is sending a very stark message to the United States and Taiwan. We said this was a red line, and we're not playing around here. And every time, and this came directly from, I think, with China's foreign minister, someone high up in the government, that explained the reason why they're doing the drill, because every time you're going to have this Taiwanese president and the separatist party come out and say they're their own nation, they're going to rely on the West, China going to show them the potential consequences of this. Actually, let me see if I can dig up this quote. I didn't save it. But one of the people in China, like, bro, we can control the entirety of ports and imports you get. Taiwan imports 100% of their food. They're like, bro, what you guys are doing is suicide. The Taiwanese president literally didn't learn anything from Ukraine. Didn't learn a goddamn thing. Where he's now about to sacrifice his people. And now we got people floating the idea of a military draft in the United States. That's literally being legislation right now, because they're ready to send your sons, your daughters, and your brother. Your sons and your brothers, actually daughters too, fuck it. They about to send you out. They're getting prepared. I didn't have it saved, but I know I can find it. They're getting prepared to send people off to war to die for Taiwan. And I'm here to warn people about this before it get bad, because China's not messing around. So I'm going to show you guys, because there's a lot of debate over this, and all these people who argue for Taiwan always end up getting destroyed.